Hello everyone, welcome to the Fair Director's Tour of Artist Room 3. My name is Nicole Garton and I'm the Fair Director for the Other Art Fair Los Angeles. As part of the fair's virtual reality edition presented by Saatchi Art, we're thrilled to be presenting over 100 extremely talented emerging and independent artists from around the world, all eager to connect with you about their work. In navigating the fair's three-dimensional virtual environment, you'll be able to discover and learn more about artworks on view. Request a video chat with any artist, save your favorites for easy reference, and make any purchases simply by clicking on the Buy This Artwork link that appears when you click on a particular artwork. That will take you to Saatchi Art's seamless and secure checkout process. If you have any questions about navigating the fair or making a purchase, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at the fair. Today, I'm very excited to introduce to you three artists exhibiting in room 3. Jacqueline Matola, Today, I'm very excited to introduce to you three artists exhibiting in room 3. Jacqueline Matola, Lézardisson Duchamp, and Kristen Hart. So let me enter the fair here and we'll navigate over to Jacqueline's stand. There we are. All right, Jacqueline, if you want to come on, I'm gonna back us up here so we can see everything. Hi, so good to chat with you. Welcome. We're so excited to have you as part of the fair and to get to hear a bit more about your works today. So I wanted to start, can you tell us a bit about your background and your journey to becoming the artist you are today?
Yeah, so I, sorry, can I start again?
Go for it.
Pause. Sorry, I just got a phone call as I was starting. Should I just start again or should I wait for you to ask me again?
Oh, yeah, you can just, when you're ready.
Okay. So I currently work in New York City and I studied studio art at the University of Maryland. And kind of since then, coming back to New York and just have continued my pursuit of abstract painting.
Sorry, Nicole, we can see your notes.
Hold on. I lost my screen. So it disappeared. Okay, hold on. No. Sorry, Jacqueline.
No, it's okay.
So am I sharing right now?
No.
Okay, my room of the fair disappeared, so I can understand why you can't see it. All right, let me open it again. Here we go. It somehow like shared the same window as something else. Technology, right? Okay. Clearly I'm not an expert in this quite yet. Okay. So I'll start again to bring you on, Jacqueline. We can just start over. Okay, let's see here. So sharing screen. Oh, a whiteboard. You're saying a whiteboard?
Yeah.
Not that one. What is the deal? Here we go. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right.
Okay. I'll go away again.
Okay. Okay. So Jacqueline, welcome to the fair. We're so excited to have you. And I am really excited to have everyone see your beautiful booth here. So to start, I wanted to ask you if you could tell us about your background and your journey to becoming the artist you are today.
Yeah, great. So I'm originally from New York, and I've kind of always been a maker and enjoyed making things. And then in college, I studied studio art and art history, which is where I really got into abstract painting. And kind of since then, I've continued working in abstract painting and kind of really following that journey to where I am now, which is I still work and live in New York City. So.
Fantastic. Okay. And as you said, you're working in abstract painting with a lot of geometry involved, really emphasizing texture. And I was wondering if you can tell us a bit about what draws you to these shapes and forms and sort of your process in building up this like really wonderful texture. I'll tab through your works while you want to speak about them.
Yeah. So the structure and the kind of forms are really influenced by my environment. So as I mentioned, I live in New York City, which I basically live within a grid system. And kind of that kind of comfort that you get through those really systematic systems that we physically live in really inspires the kind of shape and form and the geometry in the work. The texture, on the other hand, which is also really, really important in my work, is kind of comes up through a trial and error process of making. So kind of building in layers, and some of that texture comes up just through kind of maybe mistakes or painting on top of something that's then going to change, and you can see almost like grooves or recesses, raised areas that come from paintings before. And I'm really interested in the way that the texture influences that geometry. So it's kind of another way to manipulate the composition of a painting without using form or color, which in my opinion are a lot more drastic, where manipulating texture allows you to have this kind of soft or quiet adjustment in the composition.
I see. Okay. I love it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to back us up so we can look at everything all at once. And then if you want to tell us which ones to click on, I can take you there and you can kind of tell us, you know, your process of making that specific work and sort of the decisions that you're making along the way. So should I start on the left with this one?
Sure. Actually, could we start on the really small ones? Maybe the second one.
Okay, this one?
Yeah, okay. This one here. So the reason I asked you to start on these is these smaller pieces really are studies of material, which I've always kind of been making a lot of, and really just kind of using them as like explorations of different materials, which then kind of come and turn into their own small art pieces, which may or may not be used in the larger paintings. In particular, this one, I became really fascinated with painting on wood and being able to see the wood grain through the paint, and the way that natural texture of the wood grain is in juxtaposition with my more geometric compositions, I found really interesting.
Yeah, fascinating, especially when you're saying it's in the context of New York City and sort of the built urban environment, but then you've got these natural elements. I love that.
And the one on the right is a small plaster painting.
Let me go back, navigate there.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to start again?
Yeah. So this small one on the right is a plaster painting. And I, within the past, I'd say about 2 years, have been really exploring material and surface and how to be able to, I'm going to start again. In the past 2 years, I've really been exploring material and how it can manipulate the surface and textures within the paintings, and using non-traditional materials such as plaster and other things that you might find in like a hardware store rather than a fine art material. But with that, there's a big learning curve. So kind of how do you use these and how do you make them last? So with the plaster specifically, it took a lot of trial and error to be able to incorporate it into the paintings. This small one is on a panel. And so trying to figure out and learn how to get the plaster to adhere to the panel. So that's where these small studies really kind of work as like small little places to learn and really experiment with those materials.
I love that. It's like your testing ground or your little seedling patch, and then you can take it to the next level. Very cool. Okay. Where should we go next?
We could go to the in the middle panel on the right.
This one?
Yeah.
I love this. Mhm.
Yeah. So this painting is called Misplaced Nostalgia. And this is another, this is one of the first paintings where I started to use sand, which you see in the bottom right corner. And using it in a way that you can kind of build up forms or shapes without having, without using color, which as a painter, if I were to have painted that in, you know, a blue that you see in the top corner, or in a green, or even in, you know, like a darker gray, it would have an entirely different effect on the composition of the painting. But being able to kind of quietly and subtly change the composition just with that raised texture and kind of build up that form in a way that's not using color, really kind of came out in that piece, this piece. And that's when I really started to kind of play with that a lot more in all of my paintings.
That's fascinating. I love it because you're differentiating, but you're using sort of a different language through, you know, the tactile nature or just the shadows made from the raised, you know, microscopically sand pieces. So I love that. And then from here, I can go on to my next question, or do you want to show us another one?
We can go on to your next question.
Okay. So transitioning to color, I love your color palette, and it's such a wonderful mix of muted sort of earth tones and natural looking pigments. And then, you know, lack of color, as you were just describing. What inspires your color choices, and what do you look for when you're selecting your paint and your materials?
So color is definitely something that I think about a lot, even though, you know, the palette is very muted. But even within like the gray tones, you know, there's so much to think about. You know, the warm or the cool colors, the warm grays, cool grays. But really when I am using color, I'm focusing on how to use it without it overwhelming a painting. So with all of the elements, but definitely with color, it's how can you find the balance of using the color to enhance the composition as a whole, and how can you use color to create a sense of harmony or unity within the painting without distracting or drawing attention to a specific place, or without taking away from the whole. And then when I do start to use kind of those like brighter or like brighter props of color or not a neutral tone, I do also find a lot of that inspiration from the environment around me. So I'm constantly like, you know, if I'm walking on the street and I see an old building that is a certain color, and it just for some reason, like there's a building with a sign on it and the colors are different, or the sign's a different color, you know, I'll take a picture of it. And so really just when I am using colors, a lot of it is inspired by kind of the environment and what I see around me.
Love it. So for a piece like this, obviously you're working with pigments and color. Are we also seeing elements of plaster or sort of non-paint that's coming through, or is this surface all touched with paint?
This painting in particular is all paint.
Okay.
And mostly with the larger paintings,
Should I go to the
yeah, everything is painted over.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So this one actually in particular, like those kind of maroon tones. This is like a good example of is those maroon tones were inspired by an old kind of like set of like warehouse buildings that I had walked past. And, you know, all of the tones were like of the building were fading from the sunlight, but like at varying degrees. So, you know, I'm sure somebody had like painted over one section and then maybe like a year later painted over another section. So they were fading at different kind of times, and just those subtle changes, or the way that you could see that it happened kind of naturally. Like nobody was like, oh, I'm gonna paint this wall this color and let it fade a little bit, and then I'm gonna paint the next one. And I think those kind of things that end up being beautiful that weren't really intended to be painted in that way really inspire me, specifically within color.
Yeah, I can see that coming across, and you're so right. When you're walking around something that may be, you know, peeling paint and decrepit, and it's definitely past its prime, if you just kind of focus on the textures or a really cool aged color, it can really be beautiful in itself. And I feel like what you're speaking to, it's almost like you're taking portraits or, you know, snapshots of the city around you and kind of distilling some part of it into your paintings, which is, it's almost like you know, a photo diary in a sense, but you put it into paint. So I think that's really interesting. Very cool. Okay, I wanted to close and see, you know, what is it that you're hoping people walk away with when they encounter one of your works? Is it something you hope that they feel, or maybe, you know, look at the city in a different way, or what do you hope to convey?
I think the intention that I have when I am painting, which I hope that people will experience, is really like this sense of calm, a sense of like harmony and balance. I would say, yeah, that would be what I hope people gain from experiencing my paintings. That's definitely what I experience when I'm making them, and I think that would be what I wish people experience.
Absolutely. And it definitely comes across. I think they do feel very harmonious and balanced and, you know, a sense of zen. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great talking with you.
Okay, now I'm going to take us to the next booth for Les Artisans du Champ. So if you want to join us and turn on your camera. Hi there, how are you?
Oh, hi, I am doing well. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So we've gone from one form of abstraction to a very different form. So I wanted to start by asking you, you know, what's your background and what's your journey been as an artist?
Whew, yeah, I think mine is very unique. So my name, Les Artisans du Champ, I get it. It's really it's a technical name to pronounce. You know, no one ever knows how to say it. I think you're the one who has said it properly so far. So the name Les Artisans du Champ, it's a French name, and it translates to English as the craftsmen of the field. And the reason why I chose the plural form is because of my artistic journey from the start till now. So I realized before I decided to go professional in my work, I realized that it's nothing about me or my work and my artistic practice that has been just me. Nothing about it. From my early days as a young painter, learning from my grandmother, and you know, teaching myself in boarding school, I was surrounded by friends, and I had this clique. I was always part of a community, and I just realized that if there's one thing about my work, it's that it's communal. It's never just me, and even when the work is completely executed, it's still me and an audience. So the process of creation continues even when the work is on the wall, because it 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 arouses different feelings in different people at different times when the work is contemplated upon, and that is a process of creation in and of itself. So I decided, okay, I would rather go by the plural, because it's always me and the community once I begin this process of creation. So I am Cameroonian. I was born in Cameroon. I live now in the United States. I'm currently working in Atlanta, Georgia, but that's going to change very soon. I'll keep you all posted. I've been painting since I was a young boy. I'd say I've been painting since I was 6 years old. I didn't go to art school. There was no formal training. Everything I know about art, I learned from my grandmother because she was an artist as well. My grandmother and her husband. So I come from a family of artists, and that's basically me from the start till now.
Well, that's such a fascinating journey. Yeah. Wow. And I love the concept of, the work's creation continues as the viewer is kind of taking it in and experiencing it. It's a very communal process.
Right.
Fabulous. Okay. Obviously, you're working in both abstraction and figurative portraiture. And I'm glad that you have both of them here because they seem so complementary to each other. What draws you to the abstract and how does that influence your approach to portraiture?
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank you because people don't know this, but you helped create my booth. I mean, if my booth looks, it's thanks to you. So thank you very much. I decided to focus on abstract art when I started because a couple of reasons. There's this prevailing idea that as an artist with my skin color, you have to focus primarily on, representation of Black people and Black bodies in positions of power. There are conversations which I was trying to have, that abstract art could have those conversations and portraiture just couldn't. Because when you bring together this random eclectic mix of color, you're able to squeeze into tight spaces, and it's a whole different world genre as compared to portraiture. So I was trying to expand my portfolio and basically challenge myself in all these various aspects of artistic expression without being pigeonholed into one particular type of artwork because of the way I look or how I carry myself and stuff like that. So I just figured, hey, if this is something I really want to explore, it is my position as an artist to make sure I explore it.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you want to talk us through some of these works in particular, and kind of just walk us through your process and sort of who you're featuring?
Okay, let's start on the left with yes, over there. Great. So this portrait is of George Stinney, and he's the youngest person in the United States ever to be executed by electric chair. So when I was brainstorming for this particular portrait, I tried to do some research on George Stinney, and it's common knowledge now that for the crime for which he was executed, he was innocent. Right, he was innocent. But if you look him up right now or try to do some research on George Stinney, the only images that come up are images of him in a jumpsuit.
Oh wow.
Right. So I was trying to challenge that idea because here's a young boy who was basically uprooted away from his family, and for all intents and purposes, he was murdered by the state because he wasn't given the fair trial. And from the moment from when he was arrested to when he was executed, it was just 3 months. People spend decades on death row. He spent 3 months for a crime for which he wasn't even guilty in the first place. So I wanted to challenge that idea. I didn't want the conception of George Stinney from my understanding of the subject and moving forward to be this prisoner, because in the actual sense and in the when everything is considered, he was an innocent boy, and he was just a boy. So the reason why I decided to do this portrait and I decided to put him in royal attire was because I wanted to challenge that idea, and I just wasn't comfortable with the idea of him being constantly represented as this, prisoner. I wanted to change the status quo entirely.
Wow, that's so powerful. And certainly, people's identity and how they're presented is often told through paintings and through historical records. So, if he didn't have anyone presenting him at the time, then it's up to, posterity, as you're doing,
Right.
to change
Right.
that conversation. Wow.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that from now forward, maybe I'm gonna try as much as possible to make sure that this painting ranks high on Google. So when you search up George Stinney, this is the image you see, not the image of a young boy in a jumpsuit, because he has been vindicated already. So we should move away from that narrative.
Changing history, right?
Right.
Wow. And these other portraits, are these also historical figures or people?
Well, when I'm selecting subjects for my portraiture, I tend to select people who have a strong influence on me, on time, and on their environment. So basically, all the people I've selected for the portraiture. I mean, you can select anyone of your choice, and
Okay, let's try this one.
okay. So this is a painting of Amoako Boafo, and I think I titled this Nana Boafo in a white colored shirt. So the whole my technical approach to portraiture per se, it is heavily influenced by him, because he's an artist too. So when I decided to begin to express myself in portraiture, I went to the Rebel Museum and I had a chance to see his work, and his work had a profound impact on me. So I reached out to him on Instagram, and we talked about the whole facets of portraiture and the expression, and your own unique take to representing people, and how I could navigate those waters. So he had a profound impact on me as an artist, and a profound impact on my work in portraiture. So I decided, hey, I might as well immortalize this encounter with this person in the painting.
I love that. And let's now try one of your abstract works. Should we talk about this one, or I want to know a bit more about what is involved in your abstraction process as well.
Okay, this one, the green one.
This one?
Right. So this is composition number 13, and it's called A Walled Garden. So my abstract work, I look at them as symphonies. I actually call them symphonies, and each of them is a composition. So when I'm creating these paintings, I try to investigate who I am as an artist in the various facets of who I am as a person. So this particular painting was inspired by some religious literature I was reading at the time, and I was basically trying to come to a proper understanding of what paradise is, how it relates to us here on earth, and if just throwing out there in the ether, if there's some afterlife, how paradise translates into that, and the relationship between the paradise and the afterlife and the paradise we can create here on earth. So my understanding of what paradise was from the religious literature I was reading at the time, and it was so many things. I went through the creation myths from the ancient Mesopotamia, from Greek, the Greek creation myths, the Egyptian ones, the Sumerian ones. I read as much as I could read the Christian one too, because that's very important to me. And there was this recurring idea that paradise comes into being when you mesh order and chaos in a way that creates beauty. And there's this representation of paradise as a garden within a wall, because the wall represents the order, and then in the garden you have all this chaos, but it's beautiful because both of them are constantly interacting with each other. So I was trying to represent that on this particular painting, but I didn't just want to come out straightforward and just paint the tree in a garden. I was trying to paint it in an abstract way, in my own form, which when you look at it, kind of looks like a garden within a set of walls, but it's not painted outright as a garden within a set of walls. So that's what I was trying to accomplish with this painting.
Wow, I really love that. And it's interesting because a lot of your works could be described as sort of chaos within order. You have, a lot of use of line, but also these sort of gestural marks.
Right.
So I wonder, what do you hope that people walk away from when they see your work? Is it all kind of tying back to that theme?
Oh, yes. I think the most important thing I want people to, grasp from my work is I want them to leave with a greater understanding of who they are as people. Because, in my conversations with other people to whom I presented my work, there are different feelings and understandings of what my work is. I want that when you leave after having a chance to contemplate my work, I want you to focus on the different feelings that we're feeling at the time, be it rage or sadness or love or anger or whatever it is. I want people to be able to contemplate on those feelings, figure out why those feelings were created, existed at that point in time in the first place, and that hopefully that leads to a greater understanding of who they are as people. Because I'm not just doing this out there. I'm trying to create a conversation with my community. Again, going back to the plural thing, I'm trying to create a conversation with my community. So hopefully that conversation, which I have transmuted through my work, continues with the viewer as they leave the vicinity.
Oh, that's so fantastic. Gosh, thank you so much for sharing all of this insight
Oh,
with us.
so much.
Thank you. Okay, and now let's visit Kristen Hart. Kristen, if you want to join, come on. Your lovely booth here. Hi, Kristen.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you? So
Good.
nice seeing you.
I know. Hopefully, we'll all be together again soon. But in the meantime, it,
Yes.
it feels like we're there. This looks very much like the booths you've had before. So,
Yeah.
for those of you who are maybe not familiar with Kristen, do you want to share kind of your background and your journey as an artist?
Well, yeah, my background is, I grew up with a mother who was an artist. So I think that's where art comes in with me because I didn't go to school for art at all. I went to school for psychology and humanities is what I got my degree in. Um, so I started off painting. Just she taught my mother taught me how to paint. Just we would sit down and paint and taught me how to not really follow any rules, not to be too technical. I was a little more uptight than she was with that, but basically taught me how to see things in a different way.
Oh, wow, I never knew that about your work. And it's interesting because a lot of these are all photographs,
Yes.
but you have a very painterly eye that you bring into it. So, and it's interesting you had a background in psychology and sort of humanity studies because a lot of your works, I mean, just glancing, there aren't many people here, but you do have the occasional surfer kind of hidden in the waves or that kind of thing. So I wondered what draws you to the locations that you capture, and do you want to kind of start? Let's start with this one is more your desert series and Joshua Tree. But what's driving the locations that you shoot?
Well, I'll start with the desert. The desert because it's completely different. I live in Florida, Central Florida now, so actually for 20 years. But it's the complete opposite. It's I like the silhouettes of a desert, especially Joshua Tree. Um, I like the silence. I like the meditative feeling that you get when you go there. Um, that's basically what the desert I'm very obsessed with as you can see. It's otherworldly.
Yeah, the shapes that you focus on, they're almost alien. Like if this isn't part of your everyday experience, they're very otherworldly in that sense. And then these ones, you're probably if you're in Central Tech or Florida, you're not seeing the ocean quite as much. Are you somewhat close to the coast?
I am not. I grew up in South Florida, and I just recently I just recently went to Miami again. I grew up going to Miami. We didn't really go to South Beach as children. We lived in Fort Lauderdale. So yeah, I grew up near the beach, but I live in a swamp now in Central Florida. The beach is an hour away, the closest beach.
These are maybe, for all the beach lovers out there or those who wish that they had this view out their window.
Yes, 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 yes. And a little softer, like my Miami pictures, they're just soft and colorful. A little more color than I usually use.
Hmm.
And
Are
that is Santa Monica.
so this is Santa Monica.
Yes. And
This one Venice.
yes.
And are these the lifeguard towers? These are the Miami ones. Oh, okay, yeah. So,
Yes, in South Beach. Yeah, they were put up after Hurricane Andrew pretty much wiped a lot of South Florida. I was there for Hurricane Andrew. The architect, which his name always slips me, but he did like the freehand hotel, and he started putting those up and designing them. They're fun. I mean, I have friends in LA and Venice who wish we had those at our on our beach.
yeah, these are great. I love the color. They're
Thank,
very sculptural, especially as you captured them.
thank you.
So speaking of color, it's such a specific part of your work. I think anyone who's seen it before will instantly recognize it as like, oh, that's a Kristen Hart, because it's a through line in your work, even though your subjects are so different. So what are you hoping to convey through color? Is this um, one of your primary consistencies? Because I know what kind of camera are you working with? Is it digital or are you doing analog?
It's digital. I have a Canon, an EOS 5D, and I recently, about 2 years ago, got like another Canon because all my lenses are Canon. I'll stick with Canon. Um, I got a smaller one, so when I'm in Joshua Tree, I don't. If it's like if I'm just going somewhere quick, I can carry my small one and not schlep around my big Canon, which is big, with my big lenses.
Oh yeah. I had seen you share some of your process videos where you're, going into your computer and editing, and you showed sort of the before image that you had captured and then the final photograph that you created was so different. So I wondered, could you take us through a bit of your process from, where do you start? Do you have an idea of what you want to capture before and then you go hunting for it? And then kind of what's the journey after that?
Well, so Tucson, which is in front of us, I had no idea. And any pictures I really don't. Now I do with these places, but like, so Tucson, I just wanted to capture the desert. It was monsoon season when we went to Tucson, which was really cool because you don't see water very much in the desert, and there would be these like washes of. So I wanted to try to capture some clouds in the background, and then not some clouds in the background. But like Tucson to me was almost like a little overwhelming at first. Like it was very beautiful. There was blooms. It was more like a garden. It wasn't so, it was, what do I want to say? Like there was an abundance of foliage. It just didn't look like a desert so much. So I wanted to capture that when it was hard for me to do that at first because I was so, and all of my pictures were like these wide, landscape style pictures because I just wanted to get everything in it. And then I looked at those pictures that day. I'm like, okay, I need to focus. I just need to focus because I like to take a section of a piece and I can usually focus on that and then work with it. But like, so there was that crazy branch. It looks like a staged Disney World kind of thing, but it was just outside walking around the Sonoran Desert. Um, but because it was so, in my mind, noisy, um, but beautiful, the original, I just kind of wanted to take some of the noise out and focus on like this one, like the structural beauty of that, that branch that's right there, and then go in the depth of the cactus, the Sonoran cactuses, the Saguaros cactuses in the background. But I think taking out color with a lot of my Tucson pictures, I did that with because of the texture of those giant beauties. And it kind of softened it up and made it a little more calmer, I guess, quiet.
Yeah, it's interesting because as you're saying, there's so much going on here from the shapes of these very sculptural plants and the irregularity of the landscape and the texture, you almost don't need the color to add to it. And I think certainly it helps you to focus on the things that are specific about the landscape. That's really fascinating. Should we look about how you captured this one? Because I think
I love
your
that one.
surfer series is so striking. Yeah.
Um, well, this was when I was actually at one of the the art shows in California, in LA, at Barker Hangar. So I would go. We stayed in Santa Monica and Venice, so I would just go down to the beach early, and it was my way to um, like just meditate and think about the day, what I want to do. Um, and at this one, that I love the marine layer. I know California people might not as much, but I love that hazy, like foggy marine layer that comes in, and then it just kind of disappears. And
Yeah.
it's fabulous because it disappears, and then you catch these great and you're like, oh, there's the surfer, and then sometimes then they'll disappear in the water, and then there's that surfer again. But it's just this moody, like meditative experience I have in the morning all the time when I go to California or any beach. Actually, I like it in the morning.
Yeah. I think it's kind of the surfer slash, meditative crossover is very high. um, so as you're working with digital photography, you're not completely detached from the analog because of course, you're printing all of these on paper. And I know you place a huge emphasis on the type of paper that you select. So I wondered if you could tell us a bit about that and how you think of the paper as part of, the artwork itself.
Yes. So for me, so since we're on, I mean, any of them, so that surfer we just talked about, um, every one is different, but I really do go to three papers. I go to, and maybe it is the painting background, but I love how the ink penetrates the this paper. It works for my photography. It makes it, like you said, painterly. It's a little more soft. It's soft, but it also shows off everything. I think how exactly how I want to see it. So it took me a while to find the paper, but this one with the surfer because it's a little foggy, a little, it's not defined lines. It's except for the silhouette, but still, even that's really not. I picked like a cold press watercolor paper because it has more texture and it gives it even more of a dreamier, not so focused look, and it works really well on that. The surfer next to it, the pink one, is more um, like the detail on it is more defined. So I use actually a hot press on that one. So it's completely smooth, but it's still 100% cotton rag. So it like penetrates it, and the ink does, and it gives it the dimension and layers that I like.
I love that. It's always so cool hearing the process of, translating your vision to the medium it eventually takes. Very cool. So to close, is there anything you want to tell us about how you're hoping that people receive these works, what you're hoping to convey?
I just want, I just want them to have something nice to look at. I want them to look at nature, maybe go out to those places and see them in a different way. Maybe when they're taking their travel pictures, maybe look at it differently, and just see it in a different way and have a calmness about this piece in front of you. Like if you can't get there, a lot of them, my pieces are large scale. You can kind of escape to it in the piece.
Oh,
So
so true. It's like a picture window and you can choose where you want to be.
yes,
Oh, well, thank you, Kristen. Thanks so much
thank
for sharing
you.
with us. This was great.
It was fun. Thank